Okay. So real quick, I just want to share on the 5 love languages, which was a book that I read years ago by an author by the name of Gary Chapman, Dr. Gary Chapman. And he counseled couples. And so the first book very much speaks to, like romantic relationships. However, the information, you can apply it to any relationship. You can apply it to relationships with your children, with your friends, with coworkers. Everybody's got like a language that they feel the most appreciated or affirmed in, and they also they express an affinity for you, or they affirm you in that way, that whatever language that they speak. And not all of them languages are verbal. Some of them are nonverbal ways. In fact, most of the 5 ways that he talks about, the 5 languages, are nonverbal. So it's really great. And I read the book, and then towards the end of the book, and I want to say, gosh, I read this book like, oh my gosh, it could be like close to 30 years ago, as hard as that is to believe, but no, 20 years ago, there you go. And in that book, at the end, he talks about like applying it to your children too, languages for children. Since then, he's written like books, the 5 languages, love languages for parents and children and friends and all that. But the basic book, the 5 love languages, lays out the premise that each one of us has a language that's our dominant language. Some people are bilingual, so they'll have 2 that are just like almost vie for number 1 position. But most people have 1 language. And the 5 love languages are, the first one is words of affirmation. So that means that would be someone who's very verbal. They're vocal and in their affirming of you, like they'll be, I love you, like if you go to hang up, I love you, they'll always tell you I love you. They'll say, oh, that's great, oh, that's wonderful. They're communicating their love for you through words of affirmation, positive words. The second love language would be acts of service. This is somebody who doesn't necessarily tell you, but they show you. You know that you know that they love you because they do things for you. I have a son who's very much very much acts of service. You know that he loves you because he does things for you. So if you're a words of affirmation wife, you need to hear from your husband, I love you. If you're an acts of service wife, the fact that he took the garbage out, or he did the dishes, or he picks up your coat to put it on you. I mean, you just feel so loved. Another one of the languages is a physical touch. So physical touch would be, and people will say, oh, all men are physical touch. Well, I mean, to some degree, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about somebody who, like my husband is physical touch. I can just if I rub his knee, or I rub his back, or stroke his forehead or something, it's like he receives the love that way. So physical touch, children that are physical touch, they want to be next to you. They're like Velcro. They just, as long as they're touching you, they feel really loved. Let's see, which one haven't I hit? Oh, quality time. So spending time with people, that's another love language. I have another son that quality time is one of his primary languages. And who he likes to be around because he spends time with them. And you would think, well, that just makes sense. Well, people who are words of affirmation or acts of service aren't necessarily big on spending time with people. It's like a person who's words of affirmation, as long as they're talking, you could talk on the phone, they feel totally satisfied. But if you measure love, or measure how you feel loved by how much time somebody spends with you, you're probably a quality time person, and you show people that you love them by spending time with them. And the last of the languages would be, and this is in no particular order, just happens to be the way that Jeannie recalls them, but it would be gifts, receiving gifts. There are people that show you that they love you by giving you things. And children, you can really see that in children. Like I have someone close to me whose daughter was always giving me stuff, just always giving me stuff, like every time, just giving me stuff. That child's language is gifts. And so when I figured that out, I would always come and I would bring her something, and she would just be gleeful and joyful. And it didn't even matter what it was. It's not the size of the gift. It's just, wow, this person loves me. So that's the five love languages. That is a really great book. And you marry that to the personality types, and any relationship can get along better, just be more friction free. If you have a friend, like, kind of think about this, like, what's her language? You know, I have a friend that gifts is her language. And so, like, for me, I'm kind of an acts of service gal. So, like, if I love you, like, I have really two languages, acts of service and then words of affirmation are very dominant for me. So I make it, the purchasing of a gift becomes an act of service for me. Like, you can find ways to bring your language in to make it super easy to meld it with other people's language, and have them just feel satisfied. I mean, relationships are so much fun, and I think we just got to treat them like we're creating them. We're constantly creating them. We're constantly creating life, and life is made up of people and relationships. And so have fun with this. Create the relationship. And again, you can get that 5 love languages through the shopping cart here. Anyhow, thanks. It was great sharing with you.